Rena counted each breath as the escape pod's oxygen levels dwindled. 72 hours since her people had abandoned her to the void. The once proud silver sheen of her skin had faded to a sickly gray, the bioluminescent patterns that marked her as Xerian now barely flickering across her forearms. Systems failure imminent. Oxygen reserves at 8%, announced the pod's AI in its maddeningly calm voice. Rena stared at the small porthole, at the endless expanse of stars. Beautiful yet indifferent to her fate. Each pinprick of light represented a possibility she would never reach. A sob escaped her parched lips, the sound hollow in the cramped confines of the pod. "Is this how it ends?" she whispered. Betrayed by my own kind and left to die alone. The memories flooded back, sharp, painful. The classified mission to the border territories. Her discovery of the truth. High commanders using illegal weapons against neutral colonies. When she'd questioned the ethics, suggested reporting the violations to the Galactic Council, they'd labeled her a traitor. Security forces had dragged her to this escape pod, Commander Vex personally overseeing her exile. "Consider yourself fortunate," he had said, his silver eyes cold. "This is more mercy than you deserve." With a final look of disgust, he had sealed the pod and launched her into empty space, into a region where no Xerian patrol would ever find her, where no one would ever know how their esteemed military leaders violated every treaty they claimed to uphold. The pod's interior lights flickered, bathing Rena in alternating darkness and harsh red emergency lighting. She closed her eyes, trying to conserve what little energy remained in her body. Her species could survive longer than most without oxygen, but even Xerian biology had its limits. An unexpected beep jolted her from her half-conscious state. The navigation panel was flashing, something it hadn't done in 3 days. Rena pulled herself closer with trembling hands. Unknown vessel detected. Range, 15,000 kilometers, approaching, the AI reported. Hope and terror surged through her simultaneously. Someone had found her. But who? The scanner revealed a ship unlike any Xerian craft she'd ever seen. Its design was bulkier, less elegant, with protruding sections that seemed almost haphazard to her trained eye. Humans. Cold dread washed over her. Throughout her life, she had heard the stories. Humans were unpredictable, violent creatures. In the Xerian education halls, they taught that humans had nearly destroyed their own planet before venturing into space, bringing their destructive tendencies with them. They were avoided at all costs in diplomatic circles, considered too volatile, too dangerous for meaningful alliance. Warning: oxygen levels critical. 5% remaining. The human vessel was closing in. Rena's mind raced with the few options before her. Signal for help and risk capture by these feared beings, or sit in silence and accept her fate. Her finger hovered over the distress signal button. Death was certain without intervention. With humans, perhaps merely probable. "I choose to live," she whispered, and pressed the button. The pod's emergency beacon activated, sending out pulses of energy that would be impossible to miss. Now, she could only wait to discover whether she had summoned saviors or executioners. Minutes passed like hours as the human ship drew nearer. Through the porthole, Rena could now see its details. The gray-white hull marked with characters she couldn't read, the glow of propulsion systems. It was larger than she'd initially thought, perhaps a mid-sized cargo vessel or patrol ship. The crackling of the pod's communication system made her jump. Unidentified escape pod. "This is the UES Horizon. We're reading your distress signal. Do you copy?" The voice speaking Galactic Standard was deep, the pronunciation slightly different from what she was accustomed to. Rena reached for the comm panel with shaking hands. "This is Xerian Citizen Rena. I copy." Her voice sounded weak even to her own ears. A pause. "We're detecting critically low life support in your vessel. Preparing for emergency docking procedure. Stand by." Rena's chest tightened, not entirely from the oxygen deprivation. The humans were coming. There would be no turning back now. She felt the subtle shift as the pod was caught in some kind of tractor beam. The sensation of movement disoriented her already lightheaded state. The scrape of metal against metal signaled contact between vessels. Her vision blurred. The air was so thin now that each breath felt like inhaling through fabric. Alarms blared as multiple systems failed simultaneously. Somewhere distant, she heard the hiss of the airlock. Then came the grinding of the emergency override as someone forced the pod's door from the outside. Light flooded in, blinding after days in the dim pod. A silhouette appeared in the doorway, humanoid but unfamiliar. Rena's last conscious thought was that the humans looked both more and less terrifying than she had imagined. Then darkness claimed her. The sensation of breathing, real, full breaths, roused Rena. Her eyes fluttered open to bright lights and the soft beeping of medical equipment. An oxygen mask covered the lower half of her face, the air flowing through it rich and plentiful. For several seconds, she simply reveled in the sensation of her lungs filling properly. "She's awake," a voice said. Rena turned her head slightly to see a human woman in a white uniform stepping away from the bed. The woman's skin was a warm brown, her hair pulled back tightly. Nothing like the monstrous depictions in Xerian propaganda. "I'll notify the captain," the woman said, disappearing through a doorway. Left alone, Rena quickly assessed her surroundings. She lay on a medical bed in what appeared to be the ship's infirmary. Various monitors displayed her vital signs. The humans had correctly calibrated them for Xerian physiology, which surprised her. Most shocking was the absence of restraints. If the situation were reversed, a Xerian ship would have secured a human prisoner immediately. Minutes later, the doors slid open again. A tall human male entered, his posture straight and commanding. Despite lacking the natural luminescence of Xerian skin, his presence carried authority. His hair was cut short, dark with flecks of gray, and his eyes were a piercing blue that reminded Rena of the rare mineral veins in her homeworld's mountains. "I'm Captain Rayner of the United Earth Ship Horizon," he said, stopping at a respectful distance from her bed. "How are you feeling?" Rena removed the oxygen mask cautiously. "I can breathe. Thank you for that." A slight smile touched the captain's face. "Dr. Chun said you were approximately 20 minutes from complete respiratory failure when we found you. You're lucky we detected your pod at all. We were on a different patrol route, but diverted to investigate an anomalous reading." 20 minutes. The knowledge that she had been so close to death sent a chill through Rena. "Why did you save me?" The question escaped before she could consider its diplomatic implications. "I'm Zeyon." Captain Rayner's expression turned serious. "Does that matter? You were dying. But our peoples." Rena struggled to articulate the complex political reality. The Xerian hegemony considers humans to be dangerous, unstable, and yet here you are, alive, while your own people left you to die. His words carried no malice, only a simple statement of fact that struck Rena like a physical blow. Before she could respond, the door opened again. Another human entered, this one wearing a uniform with different insignia, his face set in hard lines of suspicion. "Captain, we need to talk," the newcomer said, barely glancing at Rena. "Commander Miles, our guest is awake and recovering," Captain Rayner replied pointedly. "That's precisely what we need to discuss." Commander Miles' voice dropped to a harsh whisper that Rena could still hear clearly. "Security scan the pod. It's Xerian military issue. We've potentially rescued or captured a Xerian military operative." Captain Rayner's expression remained unchanged. "We'll discuss this outside. Dr. Chin will be in shortly to check your vitals," he said to Rena before following Commander Miles out. Alone again, Rena closed her eyes, overwhelmed. She had expected captivity, interrogation, perhaps even violence. Instead, she'd received medical care and a captain who seemed genuinely concerned for her welfare. It contradicted everything she'd been taught about humans. But Commander Miles' suspicion was more familiar territory, and he wasn't wrong. She had been military, though her status now was more accurately described as deserter or exile. The thought made her stomach clench. She was officially a non-person to her own kind now. The medical officer, Dr. Chun, Captain Rayner had called her, returned to run various scans. Unlike Commander Miles, the doctor's manner was professional but kind as she explained Rena's condition. Your body was beginning to shut down non-essential systems to preserve core functions, Dr. Chen said while checking readings on a tablet. We've stabilized your oxygen levels, but you'll need to rest. Your cellular structure is different from ours, but the basic principles of trauma care seem applicable. You've treated Xerians before? Rena asked in surprise. No, but we have detailed xenobiological databases. First contact with your species was over 30 years ago, even if relations have been limited since then. The doctor's expression was carefully neutral on this last point. A soft alarm sounded on one of the wall panels. Dr. Chen glanced at it and frowned. What is it? Rena asked. Nothing for you to worry about right now, the doctor replied, but her quickened movements told a different story. The captain has arranged quarters for you once you're stable enough to leave the infirmary. Try to rest. With that, Dr. Chen hurried out, leaving Rena alone with her thoughts and a growing sense of unease. Something had changed. Something beyond her rescue. Hours later, after being moved to small but comfortable guest quarters, Rena learned what had triggered the alarm. Captain Rayner visited her, his expression grave. We've detected Xerian vessels in this sector, he said without preamble. A significant force, at least 3 cruiser-class ships. They appear to be conducting a search pattern. Rena felt the blood drain from her face. They're looking for me. Are they? Captain Rayner's gaze was piercing. Why would the Xerian hegemony deploy multiple warships to find one escape pod? Because I know things that don't want revealed, Rena admitted. Things that could damage the hegemony's standing with the Galactic Council. The captain nodded, as if her answer confirmed his suspicion. I thought it might be something like that. Commander Miles believes we should notify the Xerian fleet of your presence and arrange a transfer. If you do that, I'll be dead within hours, Rena said, her voice barely above a whisper. I know. Captain Rayner's simple acknowledgement surprised her, which is why I've denied his request. But you should know, his view is shared by others among my crew. We're not a warship, Rena. We're a scientific patrol vessel with minimal defensive capabilities. Getting into a confrontation with Xerian cruisers would be inadvisable. Then why not turn me over? The question wasn't accusatory. Rena genuinely didn't understand. Captain Rayner was quiet for a moment, considering his words. Humans have a complex history. We've done terrible things to each other and to other species. Some of the stories your people tell about us, they're not entirely false. He moved to the small viewport in her quarters, looking out at the stars. But we've learned from those mistakes. One principle we hold sacred now is that we don't abandon those in need, regardless of who they are. He turned back to her. I need to know what you did to make your own people want you dead. Not to judge you, but to understand what we're facing. Rena took a deep breath. This human had saved her life. He deserved the truth. I was part of a classified military operation along the Perseus Armed Border Worlds. Officially, we were monitoring for pirate activity threatening Xerian territories. In reality, we were testing new weapons, biological agents designed to target specific non-Xerian physiologies. Captain Rayner's expression hardened, but he remained silent, allowing her to continue. The tests weren't conducted in empty space. They were used on inhabited moons, small settlements of mixed species. Hundreds died. Rena's voice cracked. When I discovered this and confronted my commander, he said it was necessary for Xerian security. When I threatened to report the violations to the Galactic Council, they branded me a traitor. And instead of a formal trial, they disposed of you where no one would find evidence. The captain finished. Rena nodded. The hegemony presents itself as civilized and enlightened. This would destroy that image. It would also trigger sanctions from the council, possibly even military intervention. Captain Rayner walked to the door, then paused. Thank you for your honesty. Rest now. I'll inform the crew of our situation. Captain, Rena called before he could leave. What will you do? What we must. But we won't hand you over to executioners, regardless of the risk. With that, he was gone. Rena sank onto the small bunk, overwhelmed by the implications. The humans, the supposedly savage, untrustworthy humans, were willing to risk themselves for her, a stranger. Meanwhile, her own people, though she had served loyally for years, had discarded her without hesitation. For the first time since her exile began, Rena wept. Not from fear or despair, but from the shock of having her entire worldview shattered. The following days brought Rena a strange new reality. As her strength returned, Captain Raynor granted her limited access to the ship, always escorted but treated with surprising dignity. She learned about human culture through conversations with crew members willing to speak with her and through access to the ship's information systems. Some humans avoided her entirely. Others watched her with obvious suspicion. But a few, including a navigation officer named Alara and a systems technician called Sato, showed genuine curiosity about her and her world. Is it true Xerians can control their bioluminescence emotionally? Alara asked during a shared meal in the crew mess. Rena demonstrated by allowing the patterns on her forearms to pulse with a gentle blue light. It's partly voluntary, partly instinctive. Strong emotions can override conscious control. Fascinating, Sato said, leaning closer. Our ancestors would have considered that magical. Just as we considered your adaptability nearly supernatural, Rena admitted. Xerian education portrays humans as dangerously unpredictable because you can survive in so many environments and circumstances. That's just a nice way of saying we're cockroaches, Alara laughed, then explained the reference when Rena looked confused. These moments of connection were interspersed with reminders of the danger they faced. Twice, the ship went to alert status when Xerian vessels came within sensor range. Each time, the Horizon managed to avoid detection through a combination of stealth technology and Captain Raynor's skillful navigation decisions. On the 5th day of her stay, Rena was summoned to the bridge, a first. She entered the command center of the ship with trepidation, acutely aware of the stares from the duty officers. The main view screen showed a tactical display of surrounding space. The symbols representing Xerian vessels were clustered much closer than before. They're changing their search pattern, Captain Raynor explained, pointing to the display. Becoming more methodical. Commander Vex is no fool. He knows approximately where your pod would have drifted by now. Commander Miles stood nearby, arms crossed. It's only a matter of time before they detect us. We can't outrun Xerian cruisers if they give chase. What are our options? Rena asked. Limited, Captain Raynor admitted. We've been transmitting false sensor readings and modified our energy signature, but a close-range scan will see through those measures. We're 4 days from the nearest UE outpost with sufficient defenses, and 2 days from Council neutral space, Commander Miles added. If we could reach that, the Xerians would violate treaty by pursuing us. But they're between us and the neutral zone, Rena observed, studying the tactical display. Precisely. Captain Raynor's expression was grim. We need to decide, attempt to outrun them to reach UE space, or try to slip past them to the neutral zone. There's a third option, Commander Miles said flatly. Contact them. Explain that we found an escape pod and were unaware of the situation. Arrange a transfer. You mean surrender her, Captain Raynor corrected. I mean save this ship and its crew. Miles's voice rose. We have 63 people aboard, Captain. Are you willing to risk all of them for one Xerian exile? The bridge fell silent. Rena looked around at the human faces, some resolute, others conflicted, a few nodding in agreement with Miles. I can't ask you to die for me, Rena said quietly. I'll go. No. Captain Raynor's voice was firm. That's not how we operate. With respect, Captain, another officer spoke up, Commander Miles has a point. We're not equipped for this situation. Before Captain Raynor could respond, the tactical officer called out, Sir, Xerian cruiser changing course. They're heading directly for our position at high speed. They've detected us. Battle stations. Captain Raynor ordered. Shields up. Prepare evasive maneuvers. The bridge erupted into activity. Rena stood frozen, watching the crew shift from debate to unified action in seconds. Get to your quarters, Commander Miles told her, not unkindly despite his earlier position. This could get rough. But Rena shook her head. Let me help. I know Xerian tactical procedures, communication protocols. An alert cut her off. The tactical display showed the Xerian cruiser accelerating. "They're hailing us," the communications officer announced. Captain Rayner straightened his uniform. On screen, the tactical display was replaced by the face of a Xerian military commander, one Rena recognized immediately. Commander Vex's silver features were set in an expression of cold authority. "Human vessel," he began without preamble. "You have entered a restricted Xerian security zone. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded for inspection." Captain Rayner stepped forward. "Commander, this is Captain Alec Rayner of the U.S. Horizon. We're on a sanctioned patrol route in accordance with Sector Agreement 17B. This is not Xerian territory." Vex's eyes narrowed. "Our sensors indicate you may be harboring a fugitive from Xerian justice. A dangerous criminal who has stolen classified information. Surrender this individual immediately." "We've recovered no such person," Captain Rayner replied evenly. The lie surprised Rena. Xerians prided themselves on their honesty, a trait they claimed humans lacked. Yet here was a human captain lying to protect her, while her own commander had betrayed every principle Xerians claimed to uphold. Commander Vex's expression hardened. "Captain Rayner, I will give you 1 hour to reconsider your position. After that, we will take necessary measures to secure our fugitive." Xerian command out. The screen returned to the tactical display, now showing the Xerian cruiser holding position, less than 50,000 kilometers away. 1 hour, Captain Rayner said to his bridge crew. "Ideas, people. We could try to outrun them," the navigation officer suggested. "Push the engines beyond safety parameters. Their weapons would disable us before we got far," the tactical officer countered. As the debate continued, Rena stepped forward. "Captain, may I speak freely?" Captain Rayner nodded. "Commander Vex won't negotiate. The existence of the biological weapons program cannot become public knowledge. He'll destroy this ship to keep it secret if necessary." She paused, gathering courage. "But I think there's another option. If I could access your communication systems, I could send a coded message to the Galactic Council outpost in the Antares sector." "What good would that do?" Commander Miles asked. "They're 2 days away at best." "The message wouldn't be for help," Rena explained. "It would be insurance. I can encode data about the weapons program, everything I know, with an automatic release trigger if this ship is destroyed. Vex would be risking exposure of exactly what he's trying to hide." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Captain Rayner studied her intently. "You're suggesting we bluff," he said finally. "Yes," Rena admitted. "It's a risk. You might call it. But it's the only leverage we have." For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Captain Rayner nodded slowly. "Do it. Commander Miles, assist her with the communication system." Miles looked ready to object, then sighed. "Aye, Captain." The next 40 minutes passed in a blur as Rena worked with the communications team to encode her message. She included everything she remembered about the weapons program: test locations, casualty estimates, command authorizations, and set to transmit automatically to multiple Galactic Council frequencies if the Horizon systems detected catastrophic damage. When the hour was nearly up, Captain Rayner hailed the Xerian cruiser. Commander Vex's face appeared on screen, his expression impatient. "Have you reconsidered your position, Captain?" "We have," Captain Rayner replied. "We still maintain that we've recovered no fugitive. However, we have received a data package from an anonymous source containing information about alleged Xerian military activities in the Perseus Arm. Rather disturbing information." Vex's silver features remained impassive, but Rena could see the subtle flicker of his skin's luminescence, a sign of agitation that only another Xerian would recognize. "This data," Vex said carefully. "What do you intend to do with it?" "That depends on how this encounter resolves," Captain Rayner said. "At the moment, it's set to automatically transmit to the Galactic Council if anything happens to this ship. I'm sure you understand my caution, given your earlier threats." The commander's eyes darted briefly to the side, presumably consulting with someone off-screen. When he looked back, his demeanor had subtly changed. "Perhaps there has been a misunderstanding. Our intelligence may have been in error." His tone remained formal, but the threat had diminished. We will continue our security operations elsewhere. You may proceed on your course, Captain, with our apologies for the inconvenience. How considerate of you, Commander, Captain Rayner replied evenly. Horizon out. The transmission ended. On the tactical display, the Xerian cruiser held position for several moments, then slowly began to turn away. Their powering weapons down, the tactical officer reported with obvious relief, resuming their previous patrol route. A cheer erupted from several crew members. Captain Rayner raised a hand for quiet. They're retreating for now, but they won't give up. Navigator, plot a course for the neutral zone. Maximum sustainable speed. He turned to Rena. Well done. It won't last, she warned. Vex will report to his superiors. They'll develop a counter-strategy. Then we'd better make good use of our head start, the captain replied. As the bridge crew returned to their duties with renewed purpose, Commander Miles approached Rena. His expression was still guarded, but something had changed. That was quick thinking, he acknowledged. You risked exposing your people's secrets to save this ship. They stopped being my people the moment they decided to use biological weapons on innocent populations, Rena replied. Besides, I've seen enough to know that sometimes the stories we tell about others say more about us than them. Miles considered this, then offered a small nod before returning to his station. The momentary victory provided the Horizon with precious time, but the respite proved short-lived. 18 hours later, as the ship approached the boundary of neutral space, sensors detected multiple Xerian vessels converging on their position. 3 cruisers and what appears to be a destroyer-class vessel. The tactical officer reported grimly. They're moving to intercept us before we reach the neutral zone. Captain Rayner studied the tactical display. Time to boundary crossing. At current speed, 47 minutes, the navigator replied. But they'll intercept us in 35. Can we increase speed? The engineering officer shook her head. Engines are already at 110% capacity. Captain, pushing harder risks a core breach. The bridge fell silent as the implications became clear. The Horizon couldn't outrun the Xerian fleet, and it certainly couldn't outfight it. Rena, who had been granted permission to remain on the bridge during the crisis, stepped forward. Captain, they're not here to negotiate this time. Commander Vex must have convinced his superiors that the risk of exposure is less dangerous than letting me reach Council space. Agreed, Captain Rayner said. Options. We could deploy our shuttlecraft as a decoy, Commander Miles suggested. Program it with a duplicate data package and false life signs. Make them think Rena is trying to escape separately. They destroy it immediately, Rena countered, and then come after this ship anyway. What about? The tactical officer began, but was interrupted by an urgent alert. Captain, Xerian vessels are powering weapons. They're in firing range in 2 minutes. Captain Rayner's face hardened. Shields to maximum. Armed defensive systems. Sir, even at full power, our shields won't withstand concentrated fire from multiple cruisers, the tactical officer warned. I know. The captain's voice was steady despite the dire assessment. But we'll give them a fight nonetheless. Reno watched in amazement as the human crew prepared for a battle they couldn't possibly win. For her sake, the concept was so foreign to her experience that she struggled to process it. Captain, she said suddenly, let me take a communication terminal. I want to address them directly. Captain Rayner looked at her sharply. What do you intend to say? The truth. That I'm willing to surrender myself if they guarantee this ship's safety. Seeing his expression, she added quickly, it's the only way to save your crew. Out of the question, Captain Rayner replied. We don't sacrifice people, especially not those under our protection. But I'm choosing this, Rena insisted. Please, Captain, your people have shown me more humanity than my own kind ever did. Let me return that. Before he could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Warning klaxons blared. Direct hit on aft shields, the tactical officer shouted. Shield integrity at 82%. Return fire, defensive pattern alpha. Captain Rayner ordered. All hands brace for impact. Another blast rocked the ship, more powerful than the first. A console near the rear of the bridge exploded in a shower of sparks, injuring the officer stationed there. Medical personnel rushed to assist. Port shields failing, came another urgent report. Hull breach on Deck C. Captain Rayner helped a wounded crew member to a safer position, then returned to the command chair. Continue evasive maneuvers. Target the lead cruiser's weapon systems. The Horizon's limited armaments fired, scoring a direct hit on the Xerian vessel. But it was like a bee stinging an elephant, momentarily painful, but ultimately insignificant. Captain, we can't sustain this. Commander Miles shouted over the noise of battle. 3 more direct hits, and we're done. Captain Rayner's expression was grim, but determined. Keep fighting, Commander. We're not. Captain, the communications officer interrupted. I'm detecting another ship approaching at high velocity. It's a United Earth Force battlecruiser. What? Captain Rayner spun toward the tactical display. Sure enough, a massive human warship was dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system. Identify. It's a UES Defiant, sir. They're hailing us and the Xerian fleet. On screen, the view screen flickered to show a stern-faced human woman in the distinctive uniform of a UEF admiral. This is Admiral Helena Reeves of the UES Defiant to all vessels. Cease fire immediately. Repeat, cease fire immediately. The Xerian attack faltered as they processed this unexpected development. Admiral Reeves, Captain Rayner acknowledged. Your timing is impeccable. May I ask how? Your distress signal reached Earth Command, Captain, Admiral Reeves explained. We were conducting exercises one system over. Now, what exactly have you gotten yourself into? Before Captain Rayner could respond, Commander Vex appeared on a split screen, his silver features contorted with barely controlled rage. Admiral, this is an internal Xerian security matter, he stated. Your interference violates multiple treaties. Does it? Admiral Reeves replied coolly. Because from my perspective, I see Xerian warships attacking a UE scientific vessel in neutral space. That's an act of war, Commander. Your vessel is harboring a dangerous criminal, Vex insisted. So, I've been told, the Admiral said. I've also been told this criminal has evidence of Xerian war crimes. The Defiant is prepared to escort the Horizon to Galactic Council space, where any allegations can be properly investigated. The Xerian commander's luminescence patterns flared with anger. You would risk war between our peoples for this. Admiral Reeves leaned forward slightly. We would defend innocent lives and uphold justice. If that leads to conflict, the responsibility lies with those who fired first. She paused. My weapon systems are locked on your vessels, Commander. I suggest you withdraw. For several tense moments, no one spoke. Rena held her breath, watching the standoff between human determination and Xerian pride. Finally, Commander Vex spoke. This matter is not concluded, Admiral. The hegemony will file a formal protest with the Council. I look forward to addressing it, Admiral Reeves replied, along with the evidence Captain Rayner has collected. Without another word, Commander Vex terminated the transmission. On the tactical display, the Xerian vessels began to retreat. A collective sigh of relief swept through the Horizon's bridge. Captain Rayner sagged slightly in his chair before regaining his composure. Damage report, he ordered. Multiple hull breaches on decks C and D, contained by emergency force fields, the tactical officer reported. Engineering reports moderate damage to the propulsion systems. Medical reports 12 injuries, 3 serious but stable. Could have been much worse, Captain Rayner observed. He turned to where Rena stood, still processing what had just happened. It seems your evidence will reach the Council after all. Admiral Reeves's face still filled half the view screen. Captain, I'll need a full briefing on this situation, and I'd like to meet this Xerian witness. Of course, Admiral, Captain Rayner agreed. We'll dock with the Defiant as soon as repairs permit our vessel to maneuver safely. After the Admiral ended the transmission, Captain Rayner approached Rena. You were willing to sacrifice yourself for this crew, he said quietly. You were all willing to die to protect me, she replied. I couldn't let that happen. That's the thing about principles, the captain said with a small smile. They're only meaningful when they're costly to uphold. As the bridge crew worked to assess damage and coordinate repairs, Rena found herself standing beside Commander Miles at a relatively undamaged console. I misjudged you, he admitted without preamble. And your people, as I misjudged humans, Rena replied. Perhaps we've all been too willing to believe the worst about those who are different. Miles nodded thoughtfully. Do you think your evidence will make a difference? Will the Council act against the hegemony? I don't know, Rena said honestly, but the truth will be heard. That's a start. 3 days later, the Horizon docked with the Defiant for temporary repairs. The larger vessel would escort them to Galactic Council space, where Rena would present her testimony and evidence regarding the illegal weapons program. Before transferring to the Defiant, Rena found herself in the Horizon's observation lounge, staring out at the stars. The same stars that had seemed so cold and indifferent when she'd been abandoned in the escape pod now held new promise. Captain Rayner joined her, standing silently for a moment before speaking. Admiral Reeves believes the Council will grant you asylum, he said, and the evidence you've provided is compelling. It won't be easy. The Xerian representatives will fight back with everything they have. I know, Rena replied, but for the first time, I'm not afraid to face that fight. What will you do afterward? Assuming the Council protects you from Xerian retaliation? Rena considered the question. I don't know. I can't return to my people, even if I wanted to. The UEF has expressed interest in offering you a position, Captain Rayner said. Your knowledge of Xerian technology and culture would be valuable. And, he hesitated, I believe the Horizon could use an advisor on interspecies affairs. Rena turned to him in surprise. You would accept me as part of your crew? After everything that's happened? Especially after everything that's happened, the captain replied. You've proven yourself courageous and principled. Those are qualities we value highly. Rena's skin glowed with a soft blue light, an involuntary response of gratitude and hope that surprised even her. Thank you, Captain. I would be honored to consider it. The choice is yours, Captain Rayner said. For now, let's focus on getting you safely to the Council. As they stood together looking out at the stars, Rena reflected on the strange journey that had brought her here. From certain death to unexpected salvation at the hands of the very species she had been taught. To fear, from loyal soldier to exiled traitor to potential witness for justice. No one saved me, she said softly. No one cared. Until the feared humans did the unthinkable. Captain Rayner glanced at her. And what was that unthinkable thing? You saw me as a person, Rena replied. Not as an asset or a threat or a political problem. Just someone who deserved to live. Perhaps that's the real lesson in all this, the captain said. Then the vastness of space, with all our differences, it's our capacity for compassion that makes the stars worth exploring. The ship's intercom interrupted them. Captain Rayner to the bridge. Transfer protocols with the Defiant are ready to commence. On my way, he responded, then turned back to Rena. Ready to begin the next chapter? Rena took one last look at the endless expanse beyond the viewport. No longer a void where she would die alone, but a universe of possibilities. Yes, she said. I'm ready. Together, they walked from the observation lounge toward whatever future awaited them. A future neither of them could have imagined just days before. The human captain and the Xerian exile, united by principles that transcended the boundaries of species and space. Behind them, through the viewport, the stars continued their eternal vigil, witnessing yet another small miracle in the grand tapestry of existence. Enemies becoming allies, fear transforming into trust, and hope blooming in the most unlikely of circumstances.